It's always glasses on with the Josh Man. Thank you. Welcome to On the Verge, brought to you by Samsung. I'm your host, Josh Topolsky, and you're not me, which is great. There should only be one. It's really enough for everyone. We have a very interesting, very exciting show for you tonight. Bryan Bishop, our intrepid reporter. I call our reporters intrepid a lot. Our intrepid reporter went to Pixar to interview the producer and director of Monsters University, a documentary about monsters. And it's what it is. And Nilay Patel is going to be here in the studio talking about Google and all of their crazy projects. And the most important thing you need to know right now is that John McAfee is back on bath salts. So obviously lots to talk about. Let's get into the news of the week. As many of you know, the biggest gaming show of the year, E3, was held last week in Los Angeles. At the show, we got to see a bunch of the next generation consoles. We saw Sony's PlayStation 4, Microsoft's Xbox One, Nintendo didn't show anything because they don't have a next generation console. But the big news this week is that Microsoft is reversing its policies that have been extremely controversial, policies that would have made it very hard for people to sell used games for the Xbox One. They would have required an internet connection so your console could check in every 24 hours. And obviously there was a strong reaction to those policies. And take a look here. Here's the kind of negative reaction we've been seeing before they reverse the policy. Just people ripping their shirts off and rioting in the streets of Redmond and elsewhere around the world. So Microsoft has now gone back on those policies, and that should be good for the shirtless guy. But I actually want to talk about last year's E3. We saw a game called The Last of Us at E3 2012, I guess it would have been. And I was very excited to play this. It's a very intense, emotional game for the PS3. It was just released on June 14th, and I spent last weekend playing it in a haze of NyQuil because I was sick, and I broke down several times in tears because my NyQuil ran out. And but the game is actually really intense and really emotional, and I thought it showed a whole new type of art form, something that's in some ways more emotional than film. But recently, some filmmakers have been really outspoken about the fact that games don't do what films can do. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, in particular, have talked about it not really being viable as the same kind of art as film. George Lucas said, this is a quote, "By its very nature, there cannot be a plot in a game." And I think you have to listen to Lucas because this is a guy who made such incredible stuff as this right here. Highbrow fare. But Spielberg also joined in, saying that the second you get a controller, something turns off in the heart. But luckily, that's not the opinion of everybody in Hollywood. In fact, there's somebody who really disagrees with him.
I've been playing games for decades, and I even started playing Pong in 1974. And over the years, that experience has exploded from the simple pixels of Pong to worlds that are as immersive as, and certainly more physically interactive, than those portrayed on the silver screen.
Yeah, he had a slightly different tune when he was talking about his new Halo project for the Xbox. But okay, moving on, Yeezus. Yeezus leaked on the internet last week, sparking a rash. Oh, sorry, Yeezus is Kanye West's new record. I should probably tell you that, though you know, don't you? It's sparking a rash of listens in my home after I pirated it. And I have to say, I think it's an incredible record, musically inventive, lyrically bankrupt, which is makes for the best pop music possible. And to promote the album, which was officially released on June 18th, Kanye put a video up on KanyeWest.com, his internet website, starring my personal hero, Scott Disick, the baby daddy of Kourtney Kardashian, and Jonathan Cheban, who's the best friend of Kim Kardashian. The video is a remake of the film adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho novel, with Disick in the titular role of the Psycho. Take a look.
Kanye's been compared to Jesus, Hitler, Walt Disney, and even Steve Jobs.
Hey, Tissa.
Hey, Jonathan! Try getting the Yeezus album down, mother!
Just a normal way to say, hey, I just had a baby. Anyhow, you know, that's Kanye. You can't beat Kanye. So finally in news, Google launched a new product called Loon, which is a real thing. It's a balloon that brings internet to people who can't get internet. It floats around, beaming it down to, I don't know, if they don't have the internet, do they have computers? I don't really know. At any rate, it's another Google X project. Google X, as you may know, is a secretive gang of people at Google who come up with wacky, out there ideas. They're probably best known for Google Glass, which has allowed Sergey Brin's brohams to skydive and BMX their way into a Google keynote. Or maybe you've seen Google's self-driving car, which has recently been used to help a blind man order Taco Bell at a drive-thru, which I think that's not even a joke. I think it's the pinnacle of innovation. Larry Page, the CEO of Google, is a guy who's known for daring ideas, such as matching his microphones to his outfits. And you know, here's a clip of him talking about how he'd like to do more experimentation.
We haven't maybe built mechanisms to allow experimentation. There's many, many exciting and important things you could do that you just can't do because they're illegal or they're not allowed by regulation. And that makes sense. We don't want our world to change too fast. But maybe we should set aside a small part of the world. You know, I like going to Burning Man, for example, which I'm sure many of you have been to. Yeah.
No, I get it. Look, I get it. You know, Larry is limited by what he can do by things like laws, ethics, morality, the average human lifespan. It's troubling. It's really problematic. And here to talk about those problems is the lovely and delightful Nilay Patel.
I'm here.
Yeah. Nilay, you've been to Burning Man several times.
I'm drunk right now.
There's stuff we want to talk about that's real stuff. But for a second, I'd like to ask you what you think Larry Page is doing while he's at Burning Man.
I was there in the audience when he was giving that speech, and I couldn't process it at the time.
Yeah.
Because you know he has a vocal cord problem, so it's like he's whispering to this room full of thousands of people about this place he wants to go.
Have you been to Burning Man?
Yeah, it was like nothing I've ever seen.
I like it. I've never been to Burning Man, but my assumption is, my guess is that most people who go to Burning Man are on acid.
Yeah.
During their time
while they build giant
it sounds like such a
pyrotechnic.
square. They're tripping on acid. They're smoking doobies.
Yeah.
But Google is. I mean, obviously he's smoking doobies, but Google is pushing a lot of boundaries, a lot of limits. Yeah. They just did this Loon project. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to me? I mean, I know what it is, but there are people here who might not know. There are people watching who might not know. Can you explain Loon?
So it's Google's plan to give internet access to people in remote places by sending weather balloons. The balloons have internet. They go something like 12 miles in the air.
How long are they up there?
Unclear. I think it's a long time.
How many
so the balloons have computers in them, and they can regulate where they are in the airstream.
Chromebooks.
Yeah, they have Chromebooks in them, so they can go up and down the airstream and like move around and like track where they're going.
Right.
It's very high tech and like the most insane plot. Like this is like it would be a good plot for a Bond movie.
Yeah.
Like seriously,
but it's not that evil.
Yeah, but like a
what is the villain is like? I'm going to give internet to people who don't have it. Take that, James Bond.
Well, but then he controls. I think actually, I Will Control the World's Information was actually the plot of a Bond movie.
It was
Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow Never Dies.
Which is basically like I think Larry Page. It's a statement of raw ambition, right? Google's mission statement is. We want to collect and organize the world's information.
Yeah.
And then sometimes like, and don't be evil.
Yeah.
And if you get rid of don't be evil, it's we want to have the world's information.
I mean, they're phasing
and thus
out,
control the world.
They're phasing out don't be evil. I mean,
Yeah,
they're basically like, we just want info.
Right.
I like that they're like, look, there are places we cannot get information.
Right.
So we're going to send balloons into the stratosphere
No, that's exactly
to
right.
give
So if you
people
look
internet. so they could do Google searches.
And if you look at the things they do that reflect on there should be a place where there's less regulation so we can be nuts.
Yeah.
It's directed right now. That energy is focused on putting internet access.
He said that in the clip that there should be a place where they can experiment. Now, I've been watching this show called Top of the Lake, which is set in New Zealand. It's like a crime drama. But I just finished watching it, and my impression is that in New Zealand, the police don't really have any power.
Yeah.
Do you think that
it's the transition from the movie The Road Warrior to the transition
The Road Warrior, which was not a fictional. That's New Zealand.
That's where Mel Gibson came from.
I thought it was in Australia.
He was discovered.
Anyhow.
When he was filming the documentary.
The documentary, The Road Warrior. They're like, this guy actually can act. He's not.
He's quite
that would explain his behavior later in life, actually, in a lot of ways. But do you think New Zealand could be a place where they're like setting up their Google Island?
Well, no, I mean that's like they were like, look, you don't have internet, we can come in, we'll put the balloons in the sky, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And the people of Christchurch, New Zealand were like, yeah, that sounds great. In Kenya, they're doing white space internet, which is companies like Google and Microsoft have been trying to put white space internet in the United States and Europe for a decade and failed. Because people here are like, no, we use that spectrum for other things, you can't have it. Google's like, screw it, we'll go to Kenya and do it there. And that's their argument. Their argument is we can go to these states with less regulation, less industry, and we'll try stuff and see how it works.
Yeah, first white space internet, next your soul.
Yeah, well, I mean, the flip side is maybe you don't want them to disrupt everything all the time. Like, they tried to build Google Health, and I think that was on Larry's mind when he was talking about this. There's too much regulation everywhere. He said during that speech, like, I'm sick, and I finally told everybody what's wrong with my throat, and I realized the reason we don't share medical information is just because of insurance companies. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's not true. Like, it's actually just deeply personal.
Yeah, you don't want to share all of your medical
Like, I don't want to Google, +1, like, I have throat paralysis. +1, dude.
It's like on your Google Plus page, there's a sidebar of like your current ailments. Like, just had a checkup.
But I think
needs his tonsils out.
And you can't build it's great. Like, Google has products that are good, like that work.
Right.
And that's great. So
like Google Loon.
No, but like it's great if Google builds Google Search or Gmail for healthcare.
Where's the internet
The flip side is maybe what if they build Wave? Right? It's like I'm going to give all my healthcare data to Google.
The product Wave.
And they're like, screw it, this sucks.
They're like, we're not, you know what, your health data is not really
crap.
that.
We built the Google Buzz of healthcare.
We didn't really think it was that important after all. So wait, where's the internet coming from for Loon?
So that's totally unclear to me.
Beamed from a satellite.
So I know that the balloons form a mesh network, which is, by the way, like the most anarchic way. So the balloons form a mesh network.
It's like upstream, it's like water world.
Yeah, but the upstream connection to the balloons, I have not been able to figure out where it comes from.
What are the speeds?
Quickly.
They're
there's
quick?
a big wired exclusive about it, and the
right.
speed. They were quickly browsing the internet at someone's house on an old HP laptop.
So do you think projects like Loon is obviously like I mean, I don't know if it's a moon shot. It's just a weird it's a moon side.
Well, no, it's part of Google X, right? So Google X, they describe it as the place where they make atoms, right? So they built the car, they built Google Glass, they built they built Loon, and they're saying we want to come up with ideas and have them fail as quickly as possible so we can move on to the next one. So Loon is one of the few that is, like, they had the idea, they decided it was workable, they made it, it's official, it's out in the world.
But it's not the same as like a Google Glass or the driverless car, which feels to me like it's got more of an obvious commercial application.
I think Glass is a real outlier for them in terms of Google X projects.
You think it's an outlier because it is being marketed in some way as a consumer product?
Yeah, and they'll make a next one, and I think Sergey said Glass is virtually done from his perspective. Like, proof of concept is made, they put it out in the world. There's a team now that's going to iterate on it. I think the driverless car and the balloons that give people internet, I think those are just like a little bit different.
You don't think the driverless car is going to be a real product? It's going to be something that is in the world?
I think it's a technology that they'll sell to car companies. And I think, but you have to change the whole world to enable driverless cars. Like they have to, they're going state by state to like change the laws to get them even allowed. Who's like the basic question of if your driverless car crashes, who's responsible is not answered.
So my problem with Google is I've struggled with this concept that they're like their company is in beta in a lot of ways. We talked about this before. They talk about doing beta projects, but do you buy into? Is there an evil angle to this? I mean, because some of the stuff they do does seem sinister.
Right.
Right. And some of it, but I can't tell if it's sinister because they have their financial issues they want to like get at you for some reasons they can make money ultimately, or if it's just because they're somehow naive about humanity. Which is how he seems in that video.
I think it's super naive, and I think it's a question of who are you going to trust, right? And Google believes that you should trust them because they have your best interests at heart.
Do you feel like you should trust Google?
I do, but I feel like I only trust Google because their products are so good that I have no choice. And I think that
sounds like a bad relationship.
That's like a danger. But like, if your government did the things that Google does regularly, as a condition of your participation, you'd the government's reading all your email. No one's happy about it.
Yeah.
But the price.
I'm happy about it.
But the price of it is like the government claims the service we provide you in exchange for reading your email is that we keep you safe.
Right.
But I don't know that anybody believes that exchange is real or valuable. Google says the service we provide for you in exchange for reading your email and putting ads next to it is a gigabyte of storage. And it's like, is that the same as like preventing terror? Like, I don't know. And those balances are not the same.
I don't trust Google to prevent terrorism, that's for sure. Well, a dark, depressing take on Google.
That's what I'm here for. I love everything.
A very upsetting and frightening take on Google. Nilay, thanks for being here and taking the time to talk to me.
I mean,
that's fine. You can applaud.
There's a condition of my employment.
It is. You are contractually obligated to speak to me. And now, stay here. Don't go anywhere. We have an amazing, incredible, astounding, fantastic video with Bryan Bishop at Pixar, and I think you're going to enjoy it.
We're here in Emeryville, California at Pixar Animation Studios. You might have heard of Pixar. It's the company behind Toy Story, A Bug's Life, WALL-E, Finding Nemo, Monsters Incorporated, Up, and the company's latest movie, Monsters University.
I know, you're a princess and I'm just a stable boy.
Mom! What are you doing?
Your grubby paw was in my bed!
Were you kissing my hand?
No, and what about you with all your shedding?
I don't shed.
Really?
I had just started at Pixar when the first movie came out, so I was a fan of Monsters, Inc. And just the idea of telling a college story and the idea of telling a story about a character that doesn't get exactly what they want was really appealing to me. I think with any Pixar movie, that's the thing that gets us excited, is the thing where we think, ooh, that could come off bad, or that could be like the dangerous part. The part's like, are we really going to try to do that? Because that could be, that's where I think we all get excited. It's like, well, we don't know, but I like that about whenever I hear what a new Pixar idea is. I think, oh, how are they gonna sell that? And that's good, because it hopefully means it's original and taking a risk.
Right. Ricky and I both worked on the first Monsters Incorporated, and if you ever go back and watch the first one again, you'll notice that the same 12 background monsters are everywhere. We just repurpose them and put things in their hands and stuff. So I think, we always said that we really used all the parts of the buffalo making that movie, and so I think both of us really wanted to make sure that we, populated the world more densely this time around.
Normally, the process at Pixar is we would do the background characters later. As the story evolved and was kind of changing, we knew that we needed to populate this campus. Because we did it so early, it would help influence story. So story would come up with gags based upon some of these designs, and then vice versa, they would come up with a gag, and hopefully we can cast someone from this group.
We need a slug for the, okay, let's look at all the slugs.
I can't be late on the first day!
Pixar isn't structured like a traditional movie studio. Instead of bringing people together on a project-by-project basis, there's a group of talented folks in-house across every single discipline.
I worked in the industry for 10 years before I got here, so I worked a lot of different places. I was down in LA, and you kind of jump around a little bit more down in LA. Here, you just kind of stay. I've worked at places that are the opposite. We have a term where, oh yeah, well, you're basically just a wrist there, and all you're doing is just drawing. You're not thinking, which it's really limiting. You're really stunting the growth of the film or whatever you're working on if you're not allowing an environment where creative ideas can rise to the top and get the best product that you can get.
From the very beginning, John worked really, really hard to form a studio that wasn't hire up a crew for one film, let them all go, restart again, and do that every 4 or 5 years. He wanted people to stay. That's, you know, one of the reasons we do short films, because we have projects that people can work on in between, you know, the time on features. And I think he really, really believes that it's important to keep people here and keep giving them new opportunities and new learning experiences.
The studio's movies have a distinct look and feel. Almost immediately you can tell that you're watching a Pixar movie. That makes the need for fresh creative voices with different perspectives even more important. One of those voices is the director of The Blue Umbrella, the short film that accompanies Monsters University.
I started in 2008 at Pixar in the camera and staging department, which basically does the virtual cinematography of the films. There's an open door policy at Pixar about pitching ideas for short films, so anyone can pitch as long as you have 3 ideas. And I just thought, well, I should as well just try it. It was based on a test I had shot just for fun on my phone, actually, of faces in the city, and then I had loaded them up on my computer one week and then animated them. And that was part of the pitch I showed, just to show what I mean with a city coming to life.
You talk to Pixar employees, and this isn't a fly-by-night kind of place. People are here for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. The studio does a lot to let employees explore different creative avenues and different disciplines they may not have the chance to look at otherwise.
It's kind of a nice playground to have people try out new roles and new positions, and even sometimes in different departments, to kind of be a bit more playful with that.
I've been animating since I was a kid, drawing on cards. And I was studying animation at RISD. Toy Story came out my senior year. They came and brought it to RISD, and said they were looking for an intern, and I was the first animation intern.
You worked on Monsters, Inc. as well, you said?
Yeah, that was the first film I was a lead on. I was a directing animator, which means I was kind of a deputy to the sheriff on that one. And then I supervised Cars, Up, and now Monsters University.
So do you have a next one lined up, or are you like stoked for vacation at this point?
I am stoked for vacation. I actually am in between. I'm gonna try some storyboarding and just approach animation from another angle, and I don't know. We'll see what happens next.
It is an incredibly supportive environment. So while it's a little bit scary, we have the confidence that we have this amazingly talented group of people around us to help us when we get in trouble.
Yeah.
Pixar has recorded actors in this room for every film since Monsters Incorporated, and it's about to get even busier. The company has 6 films lined up over the next 4 years. The only question is, can Pixar's approach to filmmaking hold up under the volume?
We've developed a collective style almost, because it is so collaborative here, and because the same people are working on the films for years and years.
We are under an umbrella, but it's a very big umbrella.
Yeah.
It's exciting as new people come in. They change that a little bit.
I'm writing on a couple of things, but I'm also helping out on the upcoming features in the camera and staging department. So it's a mix of tons of different things, because we always everyone works together to make the features happen. And then on the side, you're doing other things as well.
There's a desire to say, bring something new here, you know,
right.
What do you want to do? It will all get filtered into, you know what I mean, into a process that feels somewhat familiar, but that's all the more reason why you need a variety of people. That's all the more reason why you need a new outlook.
We'll find out over the next couple of years how Pixar's aggressive new pace will work out. But inside the studio walls, the focus is the same as it's always been, on creative collaboration and story, story, story.
Sometimes we throw the whole movie out and start over completely. It's really a process of not falling in love with your work.
If there is a problem with the film, we're all going to get together and fix it.
Yeah.
And we're not going to let go until we know we fix it. And if that means pushing a release date, or if that means delaying things on other shows, we'll do it.
And the most important thing is we're not really scaling up or changing the amount of time for the story, which is the one thing that I think we need the time for. I mean,
right.
we're creating more movies and putting more people on them, but we're backing up so that we still give ourselves the amount of time for story development that we need.
Right.
Lovely work from Bryan, and that is our show. I want to thank So Incredible. I want to thank Yeezus for just dropping a sick record on all of us. And that's it. We'll be back next week with more on The Verge. And until then,